Okay, we got a couple minutes before we start, but I just wanted to get on and make sure the sound was cool and say hello. So, let me know how it sounds. We're going to look at the embellished versions of Pony Blues today. Should be super fun. We'll stick around and answer questions for anybody who's got them. And also a brief message from our sponsor. Anybody who is within spitting distance and is interested in the Roy Bookbinder workshop that we're doing on the 2nd of November. A few people have signed up already, but we have a few spots left. So drop me a line about that, or I think I sent out something about that. I'll probably send out something again this Friday about it. But Roy's coming to town. We're going to do a show on Saturday the 1st, and then we're going to do a guitar workshop the next afternoon. Should be super fun. And like I said, a few of you have signed up already, I know, but if you're interested in doing that, let me know. A little more voice volume. Yeah, sure, we can do that. Let's see what we got here. La 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 la. Let me know if that's better. I also probably just need to speak up a little more. Okay. Still got a minute or two to go. Somebody had a question about that version of Exactly Like You that I posted. I think it was Rob K. If we have time, I can talk about that a little bit. Just the general, the big picture, sort of what key I'm doing it in and all that kind of thing. But I'll start off here in a minute with a version of, I'll play through the Pony Blues with a vamp and fundamental and embellished versions, and just to kind of lay some of that out, and then we'll go through all the tunes, all the different versions of the tune. And you know, as usual, if you have questions, we should have time for plenty of those along the way. And it usually takes about half an hour to get through the stuff. If you haven't clicked through, if you're watching on the website, make sure to click on watch on YouTube so you can take part in the chat. If you post below the video, I won't see it till later. So click watch on YouTube. Make sure that you're in the chat when you leave your comments. And the PDF is on the intro and PDF page. So if you don't have the PDF, make sure you download that. And looks like it's just about 2:30, so we're going to get started here. And I'll play through a version of the tune. Okay, so the vamp, the fundamental, a couple of different ways to embellish the tune. Let's get into all of that. Starting with embellish number one. First thing we're going to do is add fills to the tune, because there's all that great wide open space at the end of each line, right? Because really the melody we're playing, that's the vocal melody, and then there's a couple bars where nothing's really happening. So we're going to play these fills on top, which are kind of characteristic things. Again, like I mentioned last week, I sort of went through the Charlie Patton version and listened to a bunch of other versions and kind of took an average of these are some of the kind of vocabulary that you hear when people play this tune. So this first fill I've highlighted. You can see this is still basically over here. This is still just the fundamental version, but then we're going to put in these fills. If you go back to the actual fundamental version, back here, you can see all the space, right? We get to the end of the line and nothing's really happening. So we're going to fill that in. And the first fill we're going to play is this one that goes. So if you look at it as just a lick, it's got a few things going on, but it's basically that mix of major and minor pentatonic, right? So here's the minor third, the root, and the sixth. And so what do you know? That's actually this sort of signature double stop sound is the sixth and the minor third. So here we have it. And then this move is just this. You can just follow this down through the history of the blues. This is like you hear Guitar Slim, electric blues player. You hear that sound all the time. And then, when you get to like rock blues in the 60s and 70s, that idea of like a unison thing, it has its origins back in the 30s or whenever that was invented, probably earlier. So for that move, you're going to have your pinky on the third fret of the second string and the high string on top, and you're going to pick them both. In this case, I'm using my middle and ring finger, and I'm sliding up, so like that. So, once you have you can think of that as two separate phrases, right? The first phrase is, and then the next one is. And so then the question is, how do you put that over the bass? And it's just steady bass on E. So even though I didn't break it down and block it out on paper the way that I did for the tune itself, you can apply the same process. Like, what's the bass doing? Oh, it's just rocking on the low E string. And what's the phrasing on top? It's this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's my first phrase. Answered by 1 and 2 and. So now you're going to put those together. Like that. So that's the first fill. So now that first line, this opening line is going to sound like this. So we're just, providing like our own call and response. The next fill, now the great thing about this tune is that we're always coming back to an E chord, right? So after we have the melody on the A chord, we're back to the E. And so we're going to have, just again, to break this down, we're going to have the whole lick sounds like this. So a couple things to notice right away. The bass is going to be the same as in the first line. We're just going to sit on the E. And then the answer is going to be the same. We're going to do the same unison lick here. And So if we know that, we don't have to relearn it, right? So all we really have to learn is this move right here. So that is our old friend, major 6 and flat 3rd. Well, it's only been our friend for 10 minutes, but now it's our old friend. So, and look it's the same phrasing. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So again, once you have that phrasing down, you're good to go. Now you could play these with 2 separate fingers. But if you really want to get into the spirit of things and get that sort of like rowdy Delta vibe, then you can brush with whatever finger feels right to you. I'm trying to think what I tend to use. I guess I'm using my ring finger, but it doesn't matter. The ring finger is kind of the weakest one, so you really want to make sure you get some second string in there too. So whichever finger you want to use is A-okay. And then look at this. We do the 3rd line. Oops, I'm playing too much. Okay, so now this is going to be the same as this. So the beginning of the fill for the 3rd line is just like what we did in the 2nd line. So you don't have to learn that again. It's the same thing. But now this answer, same phrasing, but different move. It's more of like an open E chord. So, which also points up one other thing, which I kind of took at face value that this song was in E and just thought, well, okay. I mean, I would have done it in standard tuning in E anyway. But I know I've seen a lot of pictures of Charlie Patton playing, like holding his guitar this way or like with a slide. And so it's possible this was done in an open tuning. And this sound, you know, the way that he's just kind of like, and again, this is like kind of unusual for me to think so carefully about a specific version. That's really not what I tend to do around here. But I did for this song really try to think about what was going on in the Charlie Patton version. And it sounds like a guy just kind of wailing away on an open chord. Like that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, it doesn't sound like someone thinking to play this. It sounds like someone's in a tuning and they're just like, wow, 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 to my ears. But I don't actually know. And it doesn't really matter because we're doing it in standard tuning. And a lot of people play this in standard tuning. And, you know, when they combine it with the licks from M&O Blues, like we talked about a little bit last week, that sounds also like pretty much of a standard tuning kind of thing, even though you could do it in open tuning. So anyway, so we've got these great, you know, moves to put at the end of each line. And so I'll play through the whole Embellished number 1, and then I saw there were a bunch of questions, so I'll stop and take on that before we get to Embellished number 2. But also, like, just notice, like, everything's kind of flagged. So it's highlighted here, and then, you know, it's just, I've tried to spell out what's going on. So we've got the, you know, measures 3 and 4, we have the blues lick with the unison double stops. Measure 7 and 8, we have the double stop blues lick and the double stop response. And then we have the double stop blues lick and the brushed chord response down here. And then this hammer on here, which is just sort of slowly starting to add in some of those articulations, like whether it's going to be hammer-ons, pull-offs, that kind of thing. So if you just want to start adding that move in as you go up into the turnaround, you can include that as well. So here's the whole Embellished number 1. I'll play it at a pretty moderate tempo. 1, 2, 3. So that's the embellished number one. Let me get to some questions here. Situate. Let's see. Okay. Is it a crime to use my ring rather than my pinky? Never. I don't even know. I'm not sure specifically what, if you're talking about left hand, right hand, and specifically where you were talking about. But no, I mean, the short answer is it's folk music. You can use whatever finger makes sense to you. If it's a specific moment with a specific question about it, I'm happy to give you my opinion. So just zero in on which measure, and if you're talking about your right hand or your left hand, and I'll weigh in further. Let's see. Yeah, Abraham kind of covered that. Bruce, why not do a double stop with the third in bar 3 when you're grabbing the G? Why not do a double stop with the third in bar 3 when you're grabbing the G? Do you mean why not do, or why not do? So, Bruce, if you could specify what you mean, I will try and answer that. Meanwhile, I think I saw a follow-up. Left hand, use the pinky a lot. Oh, yes. Okay. I do use my pinky a lot. I guess because it's there. I mean, this goes back to playing electric guitar and watching my friends play and thinking that's a big stretch, and my pinky's right here. And maybe that comes from having played violin before the guitar, where you have to use your pinky. So I don't know, but I use it all over the place. But it is up to you. I can offer my take and my opinion, but you got to figure out how your hands are going to do what they're going to do. Scott, and that's related to also, I think, Bruce's question. It seems like these are interchangeable. When I've used the wrong one accidentally, it seems pretty okay. They are completely interchangeable. My strategy here was to give you 3 different ways to do it. And then I mean, they're all on an E chord, right? And these are like permutations when you're soloing, right? Each one of these takes up almost the exact same rhythmic space. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and. All 3 of them do that. So that means that you've got room to finish your thought at the end of bar 2 or bar 6 or bar 10. And you've got room to play the pickup at the end of bar 4 or the end of bar 8 or the end of bar 12. So yeah, totally interchangeable. So Bruce, you want to put that here? No problem. Check it out. But you do want to have some different ones to do so you don't wear it out, right? Because then it doesn't, if you play the same one twice in a row, it sounds less like a fill. So that's why, we need multiple ones to do. So good. Let's see. Okay. My favorite tune yet. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's a fun one. Okay, so Bruce, we answered that. Any difference between Stone Pony Blues and Pony Blues? My understanding from my very superficial research, I looked these things up on Wikipedia. Pony Blues came out in 1929, and I think Stone Pony or Stone Pony Blues was he re-recorded. I think Charlie Patton re-recorded it in 1935. I want to say. I mean, one of the first people I heard really play the heck out of this was Mike Henderson, who is not that well known, but he's a Nashville musician, fantastic slide guitar player, great singer, also absurdly a really talented mandolinist. But he made a couple of solo records in the late 90s, and he did a version of, I think he called it Stone Pony Blues. And I remember also seeing some interview with, God, I want to say Son House, who addressed the question of, like, and Son House basically was saying, like, where did everybody get Stone Pony from? There's no, what's a Stone Pony? It was like Storm Pony. I got a Storm Pony is what he was saying, is what Son House is saying to the interviewer, meaning, you know, a horse that runs really fast or can outrun a storm or something. And that Stone Pony was like some, you know, white producer's mishearing of the lyrics. So who knows? Stone Pony doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it sounds super cool. Okay. Which strings are you bending during the double stops? Oh, that's an excellent question, Russell. Okay, I'm kind of, I don't know if you listen to T-Bone Walker, he does this thing where he takes like a whole diminished chord. If he's in G, he'd be at the 5th and 6th and 5th and 6th frets. And he'll just you know, smush the whole thing. He's going for this, basically. But he's basically doing like a quarter tone bend, but like with a whole diminished chord. And I only, you know, I saw, like, Duke Robillard loves, and Ronnie Earl both love T-Bone Walker, and I've seen both of them do that move, which is the only way I would have sort of been able to understand what was going on like T-Bone Walker records. So this is kind of a slightly smaller version of the same thing. It's the top two notes. I'm actually pushing both of them. I mean, in isolation, it sounds absurd. Correct? Because this is not, I guess that's kind of bending towards the 7, and this is kind of bending towards the 3rd. But, you know, in isolation, it sounds terrible. But in context, it sounds fantastic. So who knows? It's just one of those weird things. But I'm bending both. And I'm pushing, I guess I'm holding them down with my pinky and my middle finger. And I'm pushing. But you could do these two or these two even. So middle and ring, or index and middle. But I guess that's that pinky thing that someone was asking about. So both of them. Okay, let's see. Here's a comment from Joel about the pinky. Helpful to use the pinky. Okay. Yet a little more vocal. Okay, let me see what I can do about that. Hang on. One of these days, there'll be like some producer in here, and their name will be, I don't know what, and we'll all be like, oh, no wonder no, wait a second, hang on. No, I do have the preamp on. What's going on here? All right, well, let me just crank this up a little bit. Try that. We'll see if that's better. Okay. All right. Embellished number 2. This is where things start to get really fun. We're going to have some bass runs and some double stops. So, and the bass stumbles. So, again, I've highlighted stuff. So here's the first bass run at the end. I'll play this first line. Let's just go line by line. So, okay, now again, this is like a very old, crackly Paramount Records recording with a lot of, you know, that you have to listen through. But there are these little, you can hear these little bass lines. And again, it seems like something that would be a lot easier to do in open tuning. But I'm going to show you how to do it in standard tuning in this context. And it's not as fearsome as it looks. So let's just look first at this. We'll look at this bass move, and then this bass move, and then this whole measure, right? So here, we've got this sort of blank moment in the melody. Right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And And so all we're going to do is drop in this bass move on beat 4. So the first thing to do is just learn the bass move, which is flat third in the bass, G natural, with a little bit of a pull, like a bend. And then index finger on the 4th string has the root, E. And I'm doing, the thumb is doing the bass right where it would ordinarily. 1, 2, 3, 4 becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. But then what happens is your index finger, right hand, picking hand, is going to pick the root on the and of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and. And the biggest thing is actually just like traveling down here to get this and then back up. So you just want to slow the whole thing down. First, just try doing the bass for 2 measures. And then, now you've got an open string on the and of 3. 3 and. So you can travel during that and, right? 3 and 4 and then you've got a bass note on 1 when nothing else is happening, and that's your time to travel back up. So 3 and 4 and 1, and you're back, right? So 4 and 1 is when you move. So and then that's the first one. I am not muting on the bass run. My hand's coming up for that. And then this one, hey, come back. Now we're going to do this just at the C sharp, the 6 of the on beat 4 over here. And the same idea, only we're actually, let's see, we're going to be coming down to the open position. So measure 2. So it's the same coordination. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to cross strings and go to the 4th fret, but it's the same idea. So just the bass, and then on the and, ring finger or whatever you like is going to grab the high string on the and of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So. And so you can put those 2 measures together. And if you just, even if you just did that, you could work on that and then keep going with the fundamental. So there was a question right at the beginning of the chat about, well, how did they put it? This was Rob's question, I think. And if I ever get your name wrong, because I can't interpret your internet handle quickly enough, my apologies in advance. But I think this is Rob. Who said, I've memorized the fundamental version and can play it at about the speed you play the slow version. Should I keep it the fundamental version to increase speed or work on the embellished version? My not sounding sarcastic, but not sarcastic answer was, if you can work on a little bit of both, that would be the best case scenario. And then I also wanted to point out that you don't have to do the entire embellished version. If you've got the fundamental version down, just try adding in one element from the embellished for starters, like put in one fill or put in one bass line like this one right here, you know, and just sort of slowly build it out, because everything else is the same as in the previous version. Hey, come back. You know, so if it's not highlighted, it's what you were doing before. So we've done these 2 fills. This is definitely a little more challenging, and it sounds like this. Okay, so now this is our fill from embellished number 1. So we're building on that, and what we're doing is we're putting this bass line underneath it. So first make sure that you've got the bass line. Right, so we're going root, 6, 5, flat 3 in the bass. And then on top, we have, God, this keeps bouncing around, I'm so sorry. We have the lick, which hasn't changed. So now you just have to line up the bass and the lick. And if you look at it as just a set of moves, that's not a big deal. Nothing's really changed yet. This has an open string on top, 2 open strings in fact. So all you got to really do is grab this C sharp. So this is just like the original version. This is the next move with an open string. This is just 2 notes. That's less than a full chord, right? It's just holding down the bass here, 2nd fret on the 5th string, flat 3rd on top. This one, you got to grab 2 notes as well, but it's a funny shape, right? You got a G in the bass, you got a C sharp on top, but then you go into an open string. But really, so these guys are not such a big deal. This is kind of like a G shape, and this is the only fun one that's kind of weird. But if you learn them as a series of moves, then you can put them together. Now, the only thing that's really tricky is this hop, because you have to get from here, when the pinky is the highest note that you're doing, over to, like the ring finger has to get all the way over here. But then here, it's pretty logical to get to that shape. And then when you're coming from here, the index has to come over. But you just have to sort of sit and groove on that set of shapes. And if you break it down to make sure you know the bass first, make sure you know the lick first, then this is really step 3 of the horizontal 3-step again. Just putting things together. So that's that bass run combined with that fill. And then on the A chord, this is, again, something that I feel like I hear in the Charlie Patton version to some extent, this idea of putting these bass notes on the ands, right? So instead of just playing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, if I slow it down a little bit, now we're going to have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And I would encourage you to think of it as not 1, 2 and 3, 4 and, but 1, I know this is kind of a weird subtle distinction, but 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, right? Because that's what it is. It's these bass notes on the E string are leading you back to the A, right? 1, right? They're like leading you in. They're pickups basically. And I don't know, like if people like did like a sort of rest stroke thing where they like played the low string and then, I mean, I've seen people do, like Blind Blake does a lot of these stumbling basses, and I had a friend, my buddy Colin Aberdeen, great guitar player in Syracuse, New York. I remember when he was just getting into Blind Blake and watching his thumb, he was like trying to get those stumbles, and it seemed like resting your thumb was the best way to do it. There's a lot else going on here, and I don't find doing it as a rest stroke really practical in this situation. I tend to pick them separately, but you can experiment with that. But so now we've got to get those, again, they're happening. I did a bit of a cheat here. Like I wanted to get that offbeat feeling in the original melody. So originally, the fundamental melody, this is one of the very few times when the fundamental melody gets changed this much for the sake of doing something in the embellished. But basically the fundamental is going, right? right? So those ands, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Those notes are gone because now that's happening in the bass. The same rhythmic effect. And this is a variation on this fill, or maybe vice versa, right? But here we've got very similar shapes, right? Again, open string and 3rd fret. New shape, we gotta have the 4th fret on the low string, and then it's octaves. It's both C, but both of these are C sharps. Open string, or one note in the bass with an open string on top. Again, open string on top. So really, like, this is the only shape you have to really play, where you're fretting more than one note. So it's really, it's tricky, but it's not impossible. It's not like a really hard, the fingering itself is not physically hard to do, but it's just mentally and like dexterity. It's like not something, it's not like, oh yeah, I know a G chord. You know, it's like these funny new shapes. But I feel like they're playable with a little bit of work. And then we have this kind, I'll play the whole thing, in the whole line in just a second. But then we have this other quick chord substitution here. So we're kind of doing a quick B7. But you can also kind of think of it as like doing the 5th of the E chord in the bass. Right? And then this is kind of just kind of harmonizing this note. So it's not really a whole B chord, but it kind of has that effect. So that whole line, line 2, we've got the stumble bass in measure 5, we've got the moving bass in measure 6, we've got this sort of quick B7 chord substitution in measure 7. So 3 new things to add. And again, you could add one of them at a time, but I'll play the whole line. And again, you don't have to add them all in at once. Okay, I see some questions. Yes, Linda Ronstadt's band. I was thinking about that too. Oh, there's the Library of Congress document about stone pointing. That's good to know. What about grabbing the G sharp last beat in measure 4 in the bass would lead nicely to A. Let's see. Yeah, you could get away with that. It's a little bright to me for like this style of blues. I kind of want to hear more of, right? But that doesn't really lead to the next chord as well. So yeah, you could get away with that. That'd be kind of cool. Uh-oh, the logic. Gar asks, can you explain the logic of the bar 3 and 4 movement, please? Is it like going away to and from E, then not resolving? You know what? It's, I kind of hear it as the moral equivalent of the Chuck Berry shuffle, right? I mean, it's like 1, 6, 5. I mean, it could be... Right, it could just be that. But the flat 3 kind of takes you back to the E in a more definitive way. I sort of like the feeling of just kind of taking you down. But that's really what it is. It's like, which is a way of sitting on E and not sitting on E at the same time. So hope that makes sense. Okay, and is the bar 5 train whistle lick working as a substitute for the A chord? I mean, this is where we get into, like, you know, it's blues, so things aren't going to track perfectly in terms of harmony. It's basically, it's this. I mean, it's this. That's A7, right? This is basically taking this sound and harmonizing it with a note on top, which you could think of as the 9th, right? Like in Mississippi Blues. Right? And so flat 7 and 9 of the A chord. That's how I think of it. It's just harmonizing that blue note, which happens to be flat 7, and so it sounds good against that because it's the 3rd up from that note. Okay, and one more, I'll do this one more question, then we'll go to embellished number 3. Josh, can you help me hear the groove on the rather tricky A7 bar? Yeah, this one, I assume, with the stumbles. I mean, take out the stumbles, and you just have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so what we're doing is hearing this as a as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. And so if you put the weight on the 2 and on the 1 and 3 in the bass, 1, 2 and 3 of those pairs, like of those, and if you can count it as 1 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, if you can hear it like that, and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and then put in 2 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, right? And then put the lick in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I mean, it's almost like a tango or something, right? You know, so I mean, that's kind of what's going on. That sense that it's the ands are pushing into. If you can just basically say to yourself, and 3 and 1 and 3 and 1, so that you're hearing it as and this and that, as opposed to this and, right? Okay, good. Okay, last line. Now we're gonna just kind of gussy up this one. Right, this is the only thing we're really gonna change, and this move right here is hooray, the same as this move, so we don't have to relearn that. But this is important. So we have the melody in the fundamental just going, and the bass is going 1, 2, 3, 4 on a B. But now two things are changing. One is we're going to do hammer-ons whenever we're playing the G sharp, the 3rd, right? So because it's bluesier and it sounds better to color that note with a hammer-on. And then we're putting a bass line underneath it. In fact, we're putting, where is it? Almost the same bass line as we have here and here, right? But we're starting on B. So we're hitting a B, and then we're basically falling back down to the E chord for the next 3 bars. This is basically this long, slow slide back to the E. And while we're doing that, we're doing this stuff on top. So it's a set of shapes again. Good news, this is just hammering onto an E shape. This is playing a melodic version of this shape we just saw up here, somewhere, here, right? The pair of C sharps, right? This is going back to the E7 shape with the hammer on. You can use your your ring finger. And then this is the very first bass run we played, right? This guy right here is right here. So all these things, this is built out of stuff we've already seen. And so if we go slowly, the only thing about this that's kind of a pain is that you have to let go of this whole shape to go over here. And that's tricky. And when I'm moving quickly, I will sometimes let go of the chord, let go of this bass note here, so that I can go here with my index finger, which kind of cues up this move, right? So instead of getting, sorry. Come on, guys. Basically a whole E shape here with the ring finger grabbing the root. I will sometimes let go of this chord on, here's beat 3, and on the end of 3 I'm just going here with the index finger. And then, and it sounds fine. In fact, it makes it sound a little more linear and a little less like you're holding down a chord. At tempo, you can barely tell the difference. So that's, I'll play this whole line and I'll play the whole embellished number 2. So the whole embellished number 2, I will play through it now. This is all the bass runs and all the double stops. One more time. Like that. Okay, so a couple questions and then we'll go through embellished number 3. How about using your pinky to play the G note on the 6th, the 6th fret or the 6th? I mean, again, pinky feels better to you, rock on. This feels stronger to me, but let's see. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, I kind of don't like having all this hanging out with that, right? Because if you hold down the chord and then reach with your pinky, then you get flat third over here and major third over here. Whereas if you I kind of actually like this sound the best of jumping, even though it's harder to do because it makes everything's more distinct. I feel like you can hear the melody and the bass, the clarity between them better. That is why I would not use my pinky, but if you want to, you can. And just be mindful that you can lift your index finger off as you go for the pinky, and it sounds a little better to my ears. Okay, last thing I wanted to do was talk about how to add these extra half measures in. Now, again, taking the average of what goes on in this tune, every chorus through, I went through it, I didn't actually make a chart or anything, but on a casual listen through as I was working on this tune, I was like, oh yeah, sometimes there's 4 bars in a line, sometimes there's 5 bars in a line, sometimes there's 4.5 bars in a line. How can we kind of communicate that in a not incredibly convoluted way? And what I came up with was this idea of here's a really simple way to kind of extend the fill measure by a couple of beats. And if you learn this one move, you can drop it in or not drop it in, right? So you could use it in any one of these 3 spots. This is where it would go. And you don't have to use it all 3 times. Like each line, you can use it once in this line. You could, the first time through, you could put it here. The second time through, you could put it here. You can put it in here whenever you want. But if you practice it line by line, you have this up your sleeve as a way to sort of add a little breathing room and a little bit of surprise. And so the move itself is just, it's just the bass is going root 5, right? And then on top you're having, so root 5, 6, hammer onto the 3rd. So together the move is, and it sounds silly by itself, but if you're coming from right before it with this, it just kind of logically extends the line. In the bass you've got, so it just extends the resolution of the bass line by 2 beats. And on top you've got, again, just extends the line a little bit. So this first, you try to put these 2 measures together, right? And then you can put the whole line together. It sounds like this. And you can play it with or without, basically. If you just go around this shaded part, you just have a regular 4-bar phrase. But when you put it in, it kind of gives it that weird, where are we kind of blues feeling, which is pretty fun to be able to do on demand, on purpose, and not just because you forgot where you were. Second line, exact same thing, right? We're going to play the same phrase. You don't have to relearn it, right? And then we're going to drop it in after this. Unison, and then down here we're going to put it in after this. I mean, at this point I've been playing it like this so much for the last couple of months, it feels totally natural. And I never thought that sort of intentionally kind of breaking the 4 beats to a bar, 4 bars to a line would feel organic, but if you do it enough, it starts to be like, oh yeah, that's what that's supposed to sound like, which is a really fun thing. It's a lot like if any of you play any classic country or honky tonk, it was so hard for me to get used to coming from the world. I didn't start to play that kind of music until I'd already been playing a lot of Great American Songbook standards. Not well, mind you, but that's what I was familiar with. And everything is very squared off, like 8 bars, 8 bars, 8 bars. I mean, there's exceptions, but that's basically what's going on. And to encounter these tunes where it's like, where there's these extra bars where someone's waiting to sing or someone's playing a fill, just felt so weird and idiosyncratic. But you do it enough, and it's like, oh yeah, that's how that music breathes. That's what it's supposed to do. This is the same thing. So I'll play the whole embellished number 3. Ah, shoot. One more time. Okay, some questions. Oh, crooked tunes. Is that what that means? I've heard that expression. Clinch Mountain Backstep by the Stanley Brothers. I never learned how to play that song right. It's so confusing. Okay, let's see. B7, this is Daniel. Hey, Daniel. B7, measure 9. I hear you playing often some cool rhythmic variations, maybe explained last time. No, I didn't. The rake. Oh, okay, yeah. That, right? Yeah, I was hoping I wouldn't have to explain how that works because I'm not sure I can break it down, but I'll see what I can do. Okay, so... Okay, so it's falling between the first two bass notes. 1, so 1. Okay, so yeah, it's really packed in there. If you break it down as far as 16th notes, 1 knee and 2. Let's see, 1 knee. Yeah, so you break it down 1 knee and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and it's happening on the last of the 4 16th, 1 E and 2 E and so, and what's actually happening is pinching on the downbeat and then dragging across the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string and then grabbing the bass with the thumb. So up to tempo, it's and slowed down. Or even slower. Try to really just do it so you can hear it. That's what it is. And I guess I was doing it there too. Same thing there. So something like that. Yes. So that's what's happening there. Okay. Boy, that took longer than I thought to get through. I was hoping we'd have some more time for questions. I can stick around for a little bit if there are more questions. I think we got to most of them on the way. But any one of these, you can just, drop in where you need to. And again, like if you look at these as just embellished 1, 2, and 3 as just demonstrations of where you could add these elements in, right? So, what am I trying to say? Oh, I hate when that happens. Come on, just there we go. Right? So, you want to add fills in? Here's where fills would go. You can add fills to the fundamental this way. And then, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. You can add bass lines in and double stops. Here's how you do that. And then, you want to add in extra half measures. That's how you do that. So each one is kind of a demonstration of this thing you can do. And you don't have to memorize 3 additional 12-bar choruses. You can just slowly incorporate these into the framework that you've set up with the fundamental. Okay. Joel. Oh, hey, Joel. Not understanding what the highlighted parts in Embellished 3 are there for. They're there just to mess with the listener. They add in... this is something, these were solo recordings, like a lot of the stuff from the 20s and 30s. Now, these people did play with other people as well, but they had a certain liberty to just kind of add a beat here, add a measure there if they wanted to. And that's a really hard thing to sort of convey and still sort of make this song sort of comprehensible as a 12-bar blues. So what I did was present it as a 12-bar blues and to say, hey, if you were going to add in those kind of slippery extra beats, extra measures, this is where they would go. And they wouldn't always go here, and you wouldn't put them in every line every time. But when you did, this is the best place to put them. It's sort of a good, again, everything here is stepping stones, right? So this is a stepping stone to playing with that kind of looseness, right? And so, if I was just going to play and try to convey that... right? It could be a whole bar, it could be half a bar, it could be 2 bars, right? This is just, but putting in half a bar kind of is like, oh yeah, that feels sort of musical, and it sort of extends the idea. Yes, Scott, it's a great story about Billy Gibbons and Lightnin' Hopkins, the punchline of which is lightning change when lightning want to change. And here in Austin, I've met at least one and maybe 2 people who played with Lightnin' Hopkins at one point or another. I met someone who played bass with him, which I thought, God, that is a thankless task. It must have been so hard to play bass for Lightnin' Hopkins. And, somehow he did it, but yeah, he was like, that was definitely not an easy thing to do. So anyway, that's what those are there for. Let me know if that explanation makes sense. Okay. Looks like it did. So there it is. Okay, well that is Pony Blues Embellished. Next week, I don't know if I updated the calendar, but we will also meet on Wednesday next week. I just have some sort of zany traveling this month. Not zany, but I have some, and it's kind of not here on Thursday this week or next week. So we'll do Wednesday next week, and we will look at the vamp and look at how to put together a basic arrangement between the vamp and the embellished. And that will definitely not take the whole hour. So bring your questions and we'll talk about whatever we can talk about. All